Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Pod. My name is Marco.
My name is Catherine, and today we have a very weather-focused lesson. It's all about all the horrible things that can happen to you with the weather.
Exactly. So as you know, there are many different types of weather, and not only rain or sunshine, but many other phenomena. So we're going to take a look at some of those. But before we go into it, let's take a look at one word on Vocabulary Preview.
Vocabulary Preview.
Okay, so we're talking about extreme weather today. That's not rain or drizzle or sunshine. We're talking about really interesting, unique, and sometimes devastating things that can happen. So today's vocabulary word is Armageddon.
All right, so Armageddon. Now, you've probably seen the movie Armageddon. So what does this word mean?
Okay, so this word is a reference to the end of the world. It means the time when the world will end because of a great catastrophe or a great disaster.
Okay, so everyone talks about Armageddon. It's mentioned in the Bible. And as you say, it's when the world stops existing.
Exactly. So think about that one as we listen to today's dialogue. We will be back in a minute to talk about what's going on.
Those are the headlines for today. And now for the International Weather Report with Mike Sanderson.
Thank you, Bob. This past week has been the beginning of Armageddon for many, as a series of unprecedented meteorological events occurred around the world. In Switzerland, a major avalanche was reported in the Alps. Fortunately, no one was injured. Due to the extreme cold this winter, a blizzard has struck the U.S. Midwest, causing classes in schools and universities to be temporarily canceled. Moving on to Latin America, Ecuador has suffered a 6-month drought that has not only affected farming, but has also forced the closure of the hydroelectric power plant that provides electricity for the entire country. In Chile, a major earthquake that registered 7.5 on the Richter scale struck the southern region. Losses are reported to be in the billions. Authorities have not yet released an official statement.
Not a great week for the world. Any good news?
I'm afraid not, Bob. One of the major volcanoes in Mexico has erupted, causing major floods and landslides in the region. Meanwhile, Mexico's coast has been hit by Hurricane Liliana, and officials say that all the seismic activity leads them to believe that a tsunami may hit Central America, affecting Honduras, Guatemala, and Panama. That's all the news we have for today, but stay tuned for updates on the 6 o'clock news. Back to you, Bob.
All right, we're back. And, well, this weather report is not really far from the truth. I mean, this kind of stuff happens every day all over the world, right?
That's correct. And unfortunately, it's been happening very frequently in the past couple months. We've heard of a lot of earthquakes and volcanoes and things like that. So this is very valuable stuff when you're trying to talk about current events as well.
Okay. So why don't we start now analyzing a couple of different words and phrases on language takeaway.
Language takeaway.
Well, the first vocabulary item we have here is meteorological event. It's a real mouthful. It's a long word.
Meteorological.
So, for example, meteorological means having to do with the weather, something that's related to the weather. So, a meteorological event could be rain, snow.
Okay, so it has to do with meteorology.
Meteorology is the study of the weather, and someone who does this is a meteorologist.
So usually the weathermen that you see on TV, they're meteorologists.
So let's go now to Marco, our resident meteorologist.
There we go.
Our resident meteorologist.
Right, okay. So meteorological events. Now moving on, one of the first events that we're going to look at is an avalanche.
Avalanche. An avalanche has to do with snow. This means that when a mountain that has a lot of snow on it, maybe part of that snow breaks off and starts to roll down, you have a wall of snow that comes down. That's an avalanche.
That's an avalanche.
So you could say, avalanche. Right. And the snow comes down. And it's actually very dangerous because people can get buried under the snow.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so another event that has to do with snow is a blizzard.
Okay, a blizzard is different from an avalanche because an avalanche, maybe it's not snowing, the snow just falls. But in a blizzard, you're talking about a storm of snow.
But it's like a lot of snow coming down from the sky.
So much snow that you probably can't see anything. There's just white everywhere.
Okay. All right, so that's a blizzard. A lot of snow coming down from the sky. Now, moving on, the opposite of snow and things being wet is we have a drought.
Yeah, this is the opposite of wet, actually. So there's no rain in a drought. A drought means that things are very dry. The land is very dry.
Okay, so it's a period of time that there's no snow, there's no water, there's no rain, there's nothing. It's very, very dry. We're going through a drought.
Correct. And the problem with a drought is very dangerous is because people cannot grow food in a drought. And so lots of people starve when this happens.
Okay, so you gotta watch out for a drought. Now, in this case, it not only affected farming, but also we have a hydroelectric power plant that can't work, obviously, because there's no water.
So hydro means water. Hydroelectric means electricity that is generated by flowing water. And so, for example, a mill, something that churns water on a river, is a way to get power from water. But
Right.
a hydroelectric project that can give you electricity is maybe like a dam or an electric mill.
Right. So usually you have these on rivers and they just take advantage of the flowing of water to turn some huge turbines and generate power. So that's all we have for now. Why don't we listen to the dialogue again? And we'll be back shortly to take a look at some more words.
Those are the headlines for today. And now for the International Weather Report with Mike Sanderson.
Thank you, Bob. This past week has been the beginning of Armageddon for many, as a series of unprecedented meteorological events occurred around the world. In Switzerland, a major avalanche was reported in the Alps. Fortunately, no one was injured. Due to the extreme cold this winter, a blizzard has struck the U.S. Midwest, causing classes in schools and universities to be temporarily canceled. Moving on to Latin America, Ecuador has suffered a 6-month drought that has not only affected farming, but has also forced the closure of the hydroelectric power plant that provides electricity for the entire country. In Chile, a major earthquake that registered 7.5 on the Richter scale struck the southern region. Losses are reported to be in the billions. Authorities have not yet released an official statement.
Not a great week for the world. Any good news?
I'm afraid not, Bob. One of the major volcanoes in Mexico has erupted, causing major floods and landslides in the region. Meanwhile, Mexico's coast has been hit by Hurricane Liliana, and officials say that all the seismic activity leads them to believe that a tsunami may hit Central America, affecting Honduras, Guatemala, and Panama. That's all the news we have for today, but stay tuned for updates on the 6 o'clock news. Back to you, Bob.
Well, a word that many people are unfortunately familiar with is Richter or Richter scale. And now this is something that a lot of people are talking about right now because of the earthquake in Sichuan, China last year, and the earthquake in Haiti very recently. And so the Richter scale, that's a big R because it's a proper name, is a way for us to determine how severe, how big the earthquake was.
Right, so people talk about a 6.0, a 7.1, so that's on the Richter scale.
The lowest is 0 and the highest is 10, correct?
Right, but 10 is like impossible, apparently.
Apparently, and a lot of them are actually underwater, but the very serious ones are maybe 8.0, 7.0.
All right, so Richter scale. Now, we talked about earthquakes, we talked about snowing. Now, let's talk about a volcano. A volcano in Mexico has erupted.
Okay, so we've got two words here, volcano. A volcano is a mountain that has an opening in the center where lava from the middle of the earth, the center of the earth, can come out. So it's very dangerous, obviously, because it's very hot.
Right.
But a volcano doesn't open, it erupts. So the verb here that we use with a volcano is to erupt.
Okay, so it doesn't explode, a volcano erupts.
That means to open violently, very quickly.
Okay, so when this happens, obviously you have a lot of lava, you have maybe snow that melts, and you have floods and landslides.
Okay, landslides. A landslide is one word, but it's made up of two words that you probably already know. So land, obviously, it's the ground and
the
things
earth.
like that, the earth. But a slide is to move down across the ground. And so a landslide happens when you've got something like lava or water that's pushing all of the earth, all of the ground down, and it's destroying houses and trees and land, and it's very, very destructive.
Right. So you usually see this that happens on the side of mountains or on the side of hills where all that land starts to slide down or to go down. And it's very similar to an avalanche, right? But instead of snow falling down, it's land.
Mud and land.
Mud, yeah. All right. So we have a landslide. And because of all the eruptions and the earthquakes, they said that they have a lot of seismic activity.
This word seismic is something that I've heard a lot recently in movies like 2012.
Yeah.
So seismic means having to do with the movement of the plates under the Earth's crust. So, the Earth is not everything that we see. It's also activity, things happening underneath the ground.
Right.
And so underneath the ground, we have these big plates, and seismic activity is what happens when these kind of things start to move. Activity is movement. And so seismic activity refers to earthquakes and volcanoes, things that are changing under the ground that will affect us.
Okay. So that's seismic activity. It's pronounced seismic, right?
Seismic. That's
Seismic.
correct.
Okay. And because of all this activity, people say that they may have a tsunami.
Well, this doesn't sound very English, does it?
I know, tsunami. And actually, if you see the spelling, it's with a T, T-S.
Right, I think it's a Japanese word, but I'm not positive.
I think so, too.
Tsunami is the name that we give to a giant tidal wave. So that's a wave of water in the ocean that's very, very dangerous because it can get to 100, 200 feet tall. And this means that when it comes down, it can destroy houses, cities, cars, things like that.
Right.
And there was a very, very famous tsunami in Southeast Asia in 2004. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and in Indonesia, right?
That's right, in Indonesia and Thailand and Vietnam.
Yeah, it was intense. It was big. And it was also because of an earthquake, right?
I think so. All these earthquakes, they move the earth around, and then all of a sudden the reaction is that there's water that moves,
This
and the water
huge wave.
then turns into a wave.
Yeah, just imagine what happens if you have a bucket of water and then you start moving the bucket just a little bit, and you see how water starts to splat all over the place.
That's right.
All right, so tsunami was our last word for today. Why don't we listen to our dialogue again, and we'll be back shortly.
Those are the headlines for today. And now for the International Weather Report with Mike Sanderson.
Thank you, Bob. This past week has been the beginning of Armageddon for many, as a series of unprecedented meteorological events occurred around the world. In Switzerland, a major avalanche was reported in the Alps. Fortunately, no one was injured. Due to the extreme cold this winter, a blizzard has struck the U.S. Midwest, causing classes in schools and universities to be temporarily canceled. Moving on to Latin America, Ecuador has suffered a 6-month drought that has not only affected farming, but has also forced the closure of the hydroelectric power plant that provides electricity for the entire country. In Chile, a major earthquake that registered 7.5 on the Richter scale struck the southern region. Losses are reported to be in the billions. Authorities have not yet released an official statement.
Not a great week for the world. Any good news?
I'm afraid not, Bob. One of the major volcanoes in Mexico has erupted, causing major floods and landslides in the region. Meanwhile, Mexico's coast has been hit by Hurricane Liliana, and officials say that all the seismic activity leads them to believe that a tsunami may hit Central America, affecting Honduras, Guatemala, and Panama. That's all the news we have for today, but stay tuned for updates on the 6 o'clock news. Back to you, Bob.
So, Marco, these are all pretty terrifying. Have you ever experienced a meteorological event like one of the ones that we talked about today?
I've actually lived it through like 3 earthquakes, like pretty big ones.
Well, that's because you used to live in Los Angeles.
In LA, yeah. So we get them all the time in LA. Apart from that, I've seen a volcano erupt a couple of times because, Ecuador is part of the volcano alley, right? It's all the Andes mountains, and it's part of the circle of fire, what they call. So we have a couple of different active volcanoes, and from time to time they will start to smoke or to spew some lava, but nothing major. Like, there hasn't been a major catastrophe with the volcanoes. Hopefully it won't either.
Well, and these days they have a lot of equipment, seismic equipment and meteorological equipment that can help meteorologists to determine when things will happen, like when a volcano will erupt or if there will be an earthquake, because they can study the tremors in the ground.
Right. Yeah, and I think probably the most famous volcano is, I think it was in Italy, right? Mount Vesuvius.
That's right. So you've got Mount Vesuvius in Naples, which famously destroyed a number of cities in this ancient civilization and ancient
What is a
Roman
major
times.
eruption?
It was, and what's amazing is that they still have a lot of the buildings
Underground,
under
right?
the ash.
Wow.
Because when all the ash settled, it preserved the bodies like a mummy.
That's
and so you
crazy.
can see the bodies and the things that they, their jewelry and their money, and it's fascinating because it's this horrible, horrible natural disaster actually helped us in the future learn about this old civilization.
Yeah, it's crazy. Actually, in Ecuador, you can see a huge hole that has like a lake in the middle, and you're like, oh wow, that's beautiful. But that's actually caused because the entire mountain just kind of blew the top off, like the cone, because of this major eruption. So you can just imagine how powerful these eruptions are. I can just imagine what it would have been like Mount Vesuvius. But anyway, on a brighter note, if you have any questions, any comments, or any stories of your own, maybe you've lived through a typhoon, a hurricane, or tornado, you can come to our website, englishpod.com.
We hope to see you there.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye. The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
Great snow. Blizzard. A prolonged period of scanty rainfall. Drought. A very big rain and windstorm. Hurricane. A large sea wave produced by an earthquake. Tsunami. Something tech relating to or caused by an earthquake. Seismic activity.
Let's try that faster.
A very big rain and windstorm. Hurricane. A prolonged period of scanty rainfall. Drought. Something tech relating to or caused by an earthquake. Seismic activity. Great snow. Blizzard. A large sea wave produced by an earthquake. Tsunami.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Blizzard.
With the blizzard came strong gusts of wind, freezing temperatures, and near zero visibility because of all the blowing snow.
Blizzard.
The blizzard warning will remain in effect until tomorrow morning, when the winds will die down to about 30 kilometers per hour.
Blizzard.
If you really need to venture out into that blizzard with your car, you are going to have to go at a crawl because of the near whiteout conditions and the danger of drifting.
Drought.
The lack of rain in the spring and the above average temperatures caused a drought in the late summer.
Drought.
We have to start conserving water because of the drought.
Drought.
For about half a decade in the 1930s, the prairies in Canada and the United States experienced a severe drought, during which there were numerous dust storms, and the land became a wasteland.
Hurricane.
Several mudslides occurred in this region shortly after the hurricane passed through.
Hurricane.
North Atlantic hurricanes are formed off the tip of Africa, build as they travel across the Atlantic Ocean, and then finally hit the Caribbean and the southern United States at full force.
Hurricane.
The weather became very calm all of a sudden, and we knew that the eye of the hurricane was passing over us.
Seismic activity.
He measured the earthquakes using a seismograph and noticed the increase in seismic activity.
Seismic activity.
Seismic activity can cause new land masses to form and the destruction of others.
Seismic activity.
The seismic activity caused earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and multiple tsunamis.
Tsunami.
When there is a massive earthquake on the ocean floor, a lot of water is displaced, forming a tsunami as this water travels towards land.
Tsunami.
The Indian Ocean tsunami in 2004 was caused by one of the largest earthquakes ever recorded.
Tsunami.
She looked out over the land, still flooded in areas by water left by the tsunami that had ravaged her home just days before.
Welcome back, English learners. My name is Marco, and I'm joined here by the lovely
Erica.
And today we're going to be bringing you another great lesson, one of the lessons that you requested.
Yes, that's right. Actually, Maxim S requested this one.
Right. I think he's really into research and investigation, so we're bringing you a great lesson about this topic.
Okay, so I'm really excited to hear this dialogue all about research. So why don't we start listening to two university professors discussing an important question.
We've been over this 1,000 times. The data is irrefutable. Look, we've done extensive research, built studies, and read the literature, and there is conclusive evidence to support my theory.
Horowitz, I beg to differ. Even in your most recent study, the investigative approach was flawed. You know as well as I do, the collection of data was not systematic, and there's a large margin of error. To draw a definitive conclusion based on that data would be misleading.
That is preposterous.
You are trying to single-handedly solve one of the world's greatest mysteries, and yet you're oblivious to the fact that you're wrong.
I am not wrong. The chicken came first.
No! The egg came first!
The chicken.
Egg!
The chicken.
The egg!
The chicken.
The egg!
All right, so interesting. Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
It's an age-old question, isn't it?
And apparently, they are not going to agree anytime soon.
All right, well, what they can agree about is this awesome language. So why don't we take a look at it now in Language Takeaway.
Language takeaway.
Okay, on Language Takeaway today, we have some really great words, and this first one is really good. Irrefutable.
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 The data is irrefutable.
Okay, so if the professor says that the data is irrefutable, what does he mean by that?
He's saying that you cannot deny it. It is really, really true.
It is really true. There is no way this is a lie.
Exactly.
Okay. Irrefutable evidence, for example.
Yeah, that's a great phrase. All right, so the professor complained that Dr. Horowitz's experiment was flawed.
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 So, flawed. Is that an adjective, a verb, or a noun?
It is an adjective
Okay.
here. Now, when something is flawed, there is a problem with it, right?
Okay,
There's
so
a
it
mistake.
has an error.
Yep.
Okay. So this adjective is a way of saying that his experiment has a flaw.
A mistake.
A mistake.
Exactly.
So flawed is the adjective of a flaw.
Right.
Okay.
Now, the reason that his study or his experiment was flawed is because that it was not systematic.
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 So systematic. That's an interesting word.
Now, I think we can recognize the word system in here, right?
Right?
So when something is systematic, it follows a process.
A certain order.
Yes, a certain system.
Right. So that's basically what systematic means, to follow a certain order, to be more organized, right?
Exactly, yep.
Okay. And what about our next word?
Preposterous.
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 That is preposterous.
I love this phrase.
It usually goes together, right? That is preposterous.
Yep.
Okay, so what does it mean when I say that?
It means it's absurd. It's ridiculous.
Right. It doesn't make sense. I can't believe you said that.
All right. Well, this is a really interesting phrase, but I think it's a little bit more common when it's used by older people.
Yeah, I don't really see a young person going up to someone and say, hey, that's preposterous.
Yeah, but it is a wonderful phrase. Now, our final phrase for takeaway, oblivious.
Oblivious.
You're oblivious to the fact.
So a person that is oblivious to something.
They don't know, or they're unaware.
Okay, so they ignore maybe the facts, or
Exactly.
they don't see it.
Yeah, you're oblivious to the fact that we're in a recession.
Okay, or he is completely oblivious. You can just say it like that, right?
Yep, he doesn't know.
Okay, so we took a look at some of the great vocabulary we found in the dialogue, but there were also some really good phrases that I think we should look at.
Okay, and let's take a look at those and putting it together.
Putting it together.
You know, Marco, one of the things I love about English is the way that words seem to fit together, like blocks coming together. And here we have a lot of great examples of these words that fit together really nicely. Okay, so why don't we look at those? And our first one now is extensive research.
Extensive research.
Extensive research.
All right, so we know extensive means
A lot.
a lot.
Yeah.
So that's really good when you put it together. Extensive research. It means you have
A lot of research.
you have really studied, you have really looked things up. Okay, extensive research.
Another great research-related phrase here is conclusive evidence.
Conclusive evidence.
Conclusive evidence.
All right, now the first word there, conclusive.
When something is conclusive, you can't argue with it. It's the final decision. All right, well, the professor complained that Horowitz's investigative approach was flawed, right? So this is our next phrase, investigative approach.
Investigative approach.
Investigative approach.
Okay, so I remember the word investigate is a verb.
Yes?
But in this case, it's an
It's an adjective.
adjective.
When something is investigative, it's obviously having to do with
An investigation. So the approach so when he said investigative approach.
just simply the way you investigate
Okay.
the problem.
The way he investigated. Okay. Very interesting. What about this other phrase that I saw? It was really interesting. Definitive conclusion.
Definitive conclusion.
So a definitive conclusion.
All right. Well, again, I think we know the word conclusion, right?
Okay.
So it's a final judgment or decision.
All right.
When something is definitive, you can't argue with it or change it.
Okay, so the conclusion or the final result is final. Like there is no way of arguing it.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right.
Definitive conclusion.
This is some great language. So why don't we listen to it one more time in the dialogue?
we've been over this 1,000 times. The data is irrefutable. Look, we've done extensive research, built studies, and read the literature, and there is conclusive evidence to support my theory.
Horowitz, I beg to differ. Even in your most recent study, the investigative approach was flawed. You know as well as I do, the collection of data was not systematic, and there's a large margin of error. To draw a definitive conclusion based on that data would be misleading.
That is preposterous.
You are trying to single-handedly solve one of the world's greatest mysteries, and yet you're oblivious to the fact that you're wrong.
I am not wrong. The chicken came first.
No! The egg came first!
The chicken.
Egg!
The chicken.
The egg!
The chicken.
The egg!
So, an interesting question. What do you think? What came first, the chicken or the egg?
Well, if you ask me, it was the egg.
It was the egg?
Yeah.
Interesting. What about why did the chicken cross the road?
To get to the other side.
Do you think that's really the reason?
Well, there's a million different reasons, but this is great. I'm glad you brought that up because this is like the classic English joke.
The classic English joke, right? Why did the chicken cross the road? And the answer is always...
Well, there are a million answers. So, do you guys know any chicken jokes?
Yeah, why don't you come to our website, englishpod.com, and on the comments section, why don't you leave us your thoughts on what came first, the chicken or the egg, and why do you think the chicken crossed the road?
Research. Research is the process of finding new information, answering questions, and solving problems. It helps people learn more about the world and make better decisions. Research is used in many fields, such as science, medicine, business, and education. Students, teachers, scientists, and professionals all use research to improve their knowledge and understanding. Why is research important? Research is important because it helps people gain knowledge. Without research, we would not know about history, medicine, technology, or the universe. Research helps doctors find new treatments for diseases. Scientists discover new planets. And businesses understand what customers want. It also helps students learn and develop new ideas. Research allows people to solve problems. For example, if a city has too much traffic, research can help find ways to reduce congestion. If a company wants to sell a new product, research can show what customers need. In education, research helps teachers find better ways to teach students. Types of research. Research is done in many different fields and for different reasons. The way research is conducted depends on the goal, the subject, and the methods used. Some research is based on experiments, while others rely on studying past information. Here are some of the main types of research. Scientific research. Scientific research focuses on understanding the natural world, technology, medicine, and human health. Scientists perform experiments, collect data, and analyze results to discover new knowledge. For example, medical researchers study diseases to find new treatments, while physicists explore the laws of the universe. This type of research helps improve medicine, technology, and our understanding of the environment. Historical research. Historical research is the study of past events, people, and cultures. Historians look at old books, letters, newspapers, and artifacts to learn about history. This research helps people understand how societies have changed over time and how past decisions influence the present. For example, researchers study ancient civilizations to learn how they lived, what they believed, and how they built cities. Social research. Social research focuses on human behavior, cultures, and societies. Sociologists and psychologists study how people interact, what influences their decisions, and how societies change. This type of research helps improve education, economics, and social policies. For example, researchers study how children learn in different environments or how people react to advertisements. Market research. Market research is done by businesses to understand customer needs, preferences, and behaviors. Companies collect information through surveys, interviews, and product testing. This research helps businesses create better products, improve customer service, and increase sales. For example, a company may research which colors people prefer for a new smartphone or what type of food is most popular in a certain area. Educational research. Educational research helps improve teaching methods and learning experiences. Teachers and researchers study how students learn, which teaching techniques are most effective, and how technology can support education. This type of research helps schools develop better curriculums and improve student performance. For example, researchers may study whether online learning is as effective as classroom learning. Medical research. Medical research helps doctors and scientists find new ways to treat and prevent diseases. This type of research includes testing new medicines, studying viruses, and improving surgical techniques. It helps save lives and improve the quality of healthcare. For example, researchers work to develop vaccines for new diseases and find better treatments for cancer. Environmental research. Environmental research focuses on nature, climate, and ecosystems. Scientists study air pollution, deforestation, and global warming to find ways to protect the environment. This type of research helps create solutions for clean energy, water conservation, and wildlife protection. For example, researchers study how plastic pollution affects the ocean and how to reduce it. The research process. The research process is a step-by-step way of finding, analyzing, and understanding information. Good research follows a clear process to ensure accuracy and reliability. Choosing a topic. The first step in research is deciding what to study. Researchers choose a topic based on their interests, current problems, or gaps in knowledge. A good research topic is specific, clear, and meaningful. For example, instead of researching climate change, a researcher may focus on the effects of climate change on Arctic wildlife, gathering information. Once the topic is chosen, researchers collect information from different sources. These sources include books, academic journals, websites, interviews, and past studies. It is important to use reliable sources to ensure the accuracy of the information. Government reports, university studies, and expert interviews are considered trustworthy sources. Asking questions. Research begins with a question that needs an answer. This question helps guide the study and keeps it focused. For example, a researcher studying healthy eating may ask, how does sugar affect children's energy levels? Good research questions help researchers find useful information, conducting experiments and surveys. Some research includes experiments, where scientists test different ideas to see what works. Other research involves surveys, where people answer questions to provide data. For example, a scientist testing a new medicine may compare how two groups of people react to it. A company studying customer behavior may conduct a survey to learn what products people like the most. Analyzing data. After gathering information, researchers study it carefully. They look for patterns, trends, and important facts. This step helps them understand what the information means. For example, if researchers collect data on how much exercise people do in a week, they may find that people who exercise more are healthier. Drawing conclusions. Once the data is analyzed, researchers make conclusions based on their findings. They decide what the information tells them and how it can be used. If the research is about a new medicine, they determine if it is safe and effective. If the research is about education, they see if a teaching method helps students learn better. Sharing results. The final step in the research process is sharing the findings. Researchers write reports, publish articles, or present their results at conferences. This allows others to learn from the research and use it for future studies. Sharing results is important because it helps advance knowledge and solve problems. Challenges in research. Research can be difficult because it takes time, effort, and resources. One challenge is finding accurate and reliable information. Not all sources are trustworthy, and some may contain incorrect or biased information. Researchers must be careful and check multiple sources before making conclusions. Another challenge is time and cost. Research, especially scientific research, can take months or years to complete. Some research needs expensive equipment, travel, or large teams of researchers. Funding from governments, universities, or companies is often required. Ethical issues are another challenge in research. Researchers must follow ethical guidelines to protect people, animals, and the environment. For example, medical researchers must test medicines safely, and social researchers must respect people's privacy. The importance of research. Research is important because it helps people find answers, solve problems, and learn new things. It is used in medicine, business, education, and many other fields. Research improves technology, health, and knowledge. It allows people to make better decisions and develop new ideas. Whether studying history, science, business, or social behavior, research helps expand our understanding of the world. By following a clear process, using reliable sources, and analyzing information carefully, anyone can conduct good research. It is a valuable skill that helps students, professionals, and experts improve their work and make a positive impact on society. Challenges in research. Research can be difficult. One challenge is finding reliable information. Not all sources are trustworthy, and some may contain false or biased information. Researchers must check multiple sources to confirm accuracy. Another challenge is time. Research takes a lot of time, especially when conducting experiments or collecting data. Researchers must be patient and careful in their work. Some research requires funding. Scientific research, for example, often needs expensive equipment and laboratories. Researchers must find financial support from universities, companies, or governments. Ethics in research. Ethics in research means following rules to ensure fairness and honesty. Researchers must not lie about their findings or change data to fit their opinions. They must also respect the rights of people who participate in studies. For example, if a researcher studies human behavior, they must ask for permission from participants and protect their privacy. Scientific researchers must also consider the environment and animals. For example, medical researchers testing new drugs must follow ethical guidelines to ensure safety. Research in everyday life. Research is not just for scientists and students. It is part of everyday life. People do research when they read product reviews before buying something, compare different job opportunities, or look for the best travel destinations. Parents do research to find good schools for their children, and doctors research the best treatments for patients. The internet has made research easier. People can find information quickly with search engines, online libraries, and educational websites. However, it is important to check if the information is true and reliable. The future of research. Research is always changing and improving. Technology has made it easier to find and share information. Artificial intelligence, AI, is helping researchers analyze data faster. Scientists are using advanced tools to explore space, cure diseases, and solve environmental problems. Education is also benefiting from research. Online learning, virtual classrooms, and new teaching methods are improving education worldwide. Research continues to shape the way people learn and communicate. Conclusion. Research is an important part of learning and problem solving. It helps people find answers, make better decisions, and improve the world. Whether studying history, science, business, or health, research provides valuable knowledge. By using reliable sources, following ethical guidelines, and asking good questions, anyone can become a better researcher. Research is not just for experts, it is a skill that everyone can use in daily life.
The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
Correct. Not able to be proved wrong.
Irrefutable.
Very full and complete study to find information.
Extensive research.
Using a careful system or method.
Systematic.
Having errors or mistake.
Flawed.
Crazy, foolish, or silly.
Preposterous.
Unaware or don't know.
Oblivious to.
Way of looking for information.
Investigative approach.
Do something on your own, without help.
Single-handedly.
A final judgment that is not able to be changed. That is final.
Definitive conclusion.
Find out if something is true.
Determine.
Show something to be true.
Indicate.
An argument that is capable of making people believe that point of view.
A compelling case.
A collection of facts that implies or suggests something to be true, but does not prove it.
Circumstantial evidence.
Linked or connected with.
Associated with.
Let's try that faster.
Unaware or don't know.
Oblivious to.
Having errors or mistake.
Flawed.
Find out if something is true.
Determine.
Correct. Not able to be proved wrong.
Irrefutable.
A collection of facts that implies or suggests something to be true, but does not prove it.
Circumstantial evidence.
Way of looking for information.
Investigative approach.
A final judgment that is not able to be changed. That is final.
Definitive conclusion.
Very full and complete study to find information.
Extensive research.
Linked or connected with.
Associated with.
Show something to be true.
Indicate.
Using a careful system or method.
Systematic.
Crazy, foolish, or silly.
Preposterous.
An argument that is capable of making people believe that point of view.
A compelling case.
Do something on your own, without help.
Single-handedly.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Irrefutable. Look, we have irrefutable evidence that he was the killer. Irrefutable. The facts are irrefutable. Smoking has a negative impact on your health. Irrefutable. The irrefutable truth is that there is a monster living in Lake Erie. Systematic. We need to approach this problem in a systematic way. Systematic. We did a systematic evaluation of the evidence. Systematic. He's a very systematic guy. He's very careful with his work. Neil is oblivious to what's going on around him. Are you oblivious to the truth? I was oblivious to the fact that there was a virus on my computer. Definitive conclusion. We have not come to any definitive conclusions yet. Definitive conclusion. Before you make a definitive conclusion, make sure you examine all the evidence. Definitive conclusion. The researchers failed to arrive at any definitive conclusions. We studied the problem carefully, and we found conclusive evidence of global warming. There's no conclusive evidence that links Diet Coke to health problems. There is conclusive evidence showing that smokers die younger.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English Pod. My name is Marco.
My name is Catherine, and today we've got a great informative lesson for you.
That's right. We are going to talk about an emergency situation. So what do you do when you have an emergency?
You dial 911.
Exactly.
All right, well, maybe not in your country, but today we're talking about emergencies in America and jobs, so people who can help you in an emergency. So before we get into those words and phrases, let's take a listen to today's dialogue.
Alright class, now that we're all dressed up, let's see what professions you chose. I see a fireman, a police officer, a medic, and a lifeguard. Can anyone tell me what these people have in common?
They save people from bad things?
That's right! Now class, if something bad happened and you had to get help, do you know what phone number you would call?
911.
Yes! You would pick up the phone and dial 911. What are some emergency situations in which you would need to dial 911?
If my grandpa had a heart attack. If there was an accident. If a robber broke into the house. If the fire alarm went off. I wouldn't call 911 if the fire alarm went off in my house. The only time that ever happens is when we're having spaghetti for supper and my mom burns the garlic bread as usual.
All right, we're back. So now we have a couple of different jobs for people that are working specifically in emergency situations. So let's take a look at those now in Language Takeaway.
Language takeaway.
All right, so we have a teacher in today's dialogue who's talking to her students about jobs. So probably these students are very young, and she says another word that means jobs. What's the word she uses?
Professions.
Professions. That's the plural. So profession is a job. Let's say, for example, a lawyer is a profession.
Or a doctor.
A doctor, a lawyer. So what's your profession is another way to ask what's your job.
All right. So they're talking about professions, and some of the kids dressed up as different people. The first one was a fireman.
A fireman. So you know the first word, fire. A fireman is a person who puts out a fire. That means he uses water to stop a fire.
Oh, very good. So a fireman puts out fires. Now, apart from a fireman, we also have a police officer.
A police officer. So an officer is someone who works in an official capacity, so in a job. So we could say he is a police officer or a policeman or a policewoman.
Okay.
So 3 ways to say this.
So officer is for both genders, right? A man or a woman could be a police officer.
That's right. So you're going to hear this very often because policeman doesn't explain a woman police officer. So we use police officer to be general.
Okay. So we have a fireman, a police officer, a medic. Now, what is this medic?
A medic is a kind of doctor, someone who will look at your health or help you if you've hurt yourself, who usually works on the road, like driving to an accident or driving to a fire with police officers. So these people help police officers and firemen when there's an emergency.
Okay. So a medic is not really a doctor. He's more of a specific person that can help you if you have maybe some cuts or bruises or will help you out.
Right, so this person will stop your bleeding or will help take you to the hospital, and they'll make sure that you're healthy when you get to the hospital. But they are not really like a doctor where you work in a hospital or a doctor's office.
Okay. And our last profession is a lifeguard.
Well, think about these two words. We have life and we have guard. Guard is like protect.
So a person that protects your life.
Interesting. Well, this is someone who usually works at the beach or at a pool. They have a special chair, and usually they have a cross on their bathing suit or on their towel. And this means that they're going to help protect people who are at the beach. So if someone can't swim, the lifeguard will run or swim to get them and save them.
Okay, very good. So you have a lifeguard. Now, this is for men and women as well, right? A lifeguard.
Exactly.
Okay. So interesting professions. Why don't we listen to our dialogue again, and we'll be back shortly.
Alright, class, now that we're all dressed up, let's see what professions you chose. I see a fireman, a police officer, a medic, and a lifeguard. Can anyone tell me what these people have in common?
They save people from bad things?
That's right! Now, class, if something bad happened and you had to get help, do you know what phone number you would call?
911.
Yes! You would pick up the phone and dial 911. What are some emergency situations in which you would need to dial 911?
If my grandpa had a heart attack.
If there was an accident.
If a robber broke into the house.
If the fire alarm went off.
I wouldn't call 911 if the fire alarm went off in my house. The only time that ever happens is when we're having spaghetti for supper and my mom burns the garlic bread as usual.
All right, we're back. So now let's start with Fluency Builder.
Fluency Builder.
Our first item in Fluency Builder we've already talked about. The number in America to call when you have an emergency is 911. So we usually say, hey, dial 911.
Okay, so that's a verb there, to dial.
Exactly. To dial means to select the numbers for a phone call, to telephone someone.
To telephone someone, to dial. So you can dial 911 or dial my office number.
Or I tried to dial your home number, but no one answered.
Okay. Now, you can call 911 for many different situations or emergency. One of the kids said, well, if my grandpa had a heart attack.
Okay, so this is an example of an emergency. A heart attack is a medical problem. It's when your heart cannot receive oxygen.
Okay, so your heart stops beating sometimes.
That's right. Sorry. It's when your heart does not receive enough blood or oxygen, so it's when your heart stops beating.
Okay, very good. So that's a heart attack. Now, another possible emergency situation is if the fire alarm goes off.
This often happens in office buildings and schools. So you hear a dee or some kind of strange noise. Well, that's because there's maybe a fire or some smoke in your building. And so usually when this sound goes off, it automatically calls the police and the fire department.
Okay. Now, there's an interesting phrasal verb that is used along with this word fire alarm. We say the fire alarm goes off or the fire alarm went off. So that means it started to sound, to emit a sound.
So the verb here, as you said, it's a phrasal verb, is to go off. To go off. We could say my alarm went off. Or every morning at 7 o'clock, my alarm goes off.
Okay, that means your alarm begins to make a sound.
A very annoying sound.
Right.
You know, it's the worst sound ever. But a lot of things can go off. We could talk about a bell or an alarm.
Or fireworks.
Fireworks go off.
Okay. And, well, the last emergency that we were talking about is if a robber broke into the house. So if a robber breaks in.
To break into. This means to enter, to go inside without permission or without a key. Illegally. So you don't have to break something, but usually you break a window or a door. But this means that someone comes into your house looking to steal something.
So usually you have to use force. For example, if I forget my keys inside my car and I have to break into my own car, that means maybe I have to force the door open or maybe break the window.
Yeah, it's not fun. I think it usually ends up being very expensive.
Yes, it does. All right, so those are all the phrases we have for today. Why don't we listen to our dialogue for the very last time?
Alright, class, now that we're all dressed up, let's see what professions you chose. I see a fireman, a police officer, a medic, and a lifeguard. Can anyone tell me what these people have in common?
They save people from bad things?
That's right! Now, class, if something bad happened and you had to get help, do you know what phone number you would call?
911.
Yes! You would pick up the phone and dial 911. What are some emergency situations in which you would need to dial 911?
If my grandpa had a heart attack. If there was an accident. If a robber broke into the house. If the fire alarm went off. I wouldn't call 911 if the fire alarm went off in my house. The only time that ever happens is when we're having spaghetti for supper and my mom burns the garlic bread as usual.
So, Marco, when you were a kid and your teacher said, what jobs are there? What professions are there? What profession would you like? What did you answer?
I always wanted to be a pilot.
Oh, pilot. So you wanted to fly airplanes.
Yeah, I wanted to be a jet pilot. Actually, I collected books about it. I read up about it. So even till now, I probably still remember the capacity of certain jets or what types of weapons they have. I was really, really into it.
Wow. I never knew this about you.
Yeah. What about you?
Oh, I could never decide as a kid. I remember we had to draw pictures of what I will look like in 20 years. And everyone had these pictures. I will be a doctor. I'll be a veterinarian. I'll be the president. I never knew what to draw. So, I think I copied my friend. She wanted to be a lawyer. And I thought, okay, that sounds okay.
Yeah, I think it's hard. And usually what you want to be as a kid, you don't do it when you're older. I couldn't do it because of my vision. I didn't have 20/20 vision to actually join the Air Force. So
well, and a lot of kids don't know how many jobs there are out there. You know the big ones: doctor, lawyer, fireman, policeman, astronaut.
Right.
So I guess the question for you is, what's your profession? Tell us about it, especially if it's one of the less famous professions out there, because there's a lot that I don't know about those. Our website is englishpod.com. We hope to see you there, and until next time.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word.
To put on fancy dress or a disguise. Dress up. An occupation requiring special training. Profession. Person who puts out fires and rescues people. Fireman. Policeman or policewoman. Police officer. Person who protects people from drowning. Lifeguard. To press the buttons to make a telephone call. Dial. To enter a house illegally, especially by force. Break into. To ring or sound loudly. Go off. Person who robs or steals. Robber. Painful condition where the heart stops beating. Heart attack.
Take up by hand. Pick up.
Let's try that faster.
Painful condition where the heart stops beating. Heart attack. To enter a house illegally, especially by force. Break into. Person who puts out fires and rescues people. Fireman. To ring or sound loudly. Go off. An occupation requiring special training. Profession.
Take up by hand. Pick up.
Policeman or policewoman. Police officer. Person who protects people from drowning. Lifeguard. To put on fancy dress or a disguise. Dress up. To press the buttons to make a telephone call. Dial. Person who robs or steals. Robber.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Dress up.
I dressed up as a policeman for Halloween.
Dress up.
There was an event this weekend where all the guests had to dress up as angels.
Dress up.
I think it's cute when children dress up for Halloween. Pick up. If you have an emergency, pick up the phone and call the police. Pick up. Pick up these toys from the ground. Pick up. I dropped my pencil. Can you bend over and pick it up for me, please?
Dial.
Pick up the phone and dial this number.
Dial.
I wanted to dial, but I couldn't remember the number.
Dial.
It's hard for me to dial a number on this phone. The buttons are too small.
Break into.
We had a break-in last weekend.
Break into.
The thief broke in the apartment and stole the TV.
Break into.
I had to break into my own car last night because I forgot the keys inside.
Go off.
My car alarm goes off whenever someone gets near my car.
Go off.
The fire alarm went off in our school today.
Go off.
My alarm clock goes off every morning at 6.